Also remember that people think this is me, so don't be confusing.
People think what?
The chat is me, so.
Mm.
Audio.
Test, 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 test. Someone say something if they can hear me. I think Outland, I think you're the only one in chat right now. So let me know if you can hear me. I guess if you couldn't, then that would be a problem.
Just now showing ads.
Okay.
Hey.
So we're gonna make sure I got audio going here. Now I can see and hear you. Yay! Awesome. So welcome to another live stream. I've got the Copperhead swag set up here in the workshop, and I've got my wife Kim handling the chat as always. So she's going to tell me what questions I should be answering. So yeah, you want to get it started? Give me some questions.
Yeah, let's start with the previously submitted questions. So we have a question from Ayed, I think.
Ayed, okay.
Which combat robotics team, if any, has influenced your robots the most?
Outland saying it's a little bit fuzzy. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with this camera. I need to get a HDMI video capture so I can do my real camera. This is just a webcam and it's not super awesome. So what combat robot or teams have most inspired me? I would say Hal Rucker of Team Black and Blue, which is Duck, Whoops, and Black and Blue, and a few others. I really like Hal's aesthetic towards things. I really like the way that he designs his bots to really look like a product. I mean, if you look at Duck looks like it's a finished product. I really like the aesthetic that he does. And I like that Hal isn't designing a bot to, okay, I'm not going to say this in a bad way. He's not designing it to win. He's designing it for a design challenge. And I really like what he's doing with that. And Low Man, Long Man have both been bots kind of designed in that vein. I wanted to have something that, you know, just looked interesting and was a different design. So yeah, I think Hal, Team Black and Blue is kind of my favorite. I really like what Paul is doing a Bite Force. I know not a lot of people are super big fans of Bite Force, but there's a lot of good details that I really like about him. I like that they tear down the bot after every fight, things like that. Yeah, I really like what they're going for with the attention to detail. And yeah, Duck looks like something you could buy as a product. It looks like if Apple, you know, was going to make a combat robot.
Next question from Disulfur.
Disulfur.
How are you?
Well, thank you, Disulfur. How am I? I'm actually doing okay. I'm assuming that this is just kind of, you know, with everything that's going on. We haven't been able to fight robots. Obviously, we went out and fought Battlebots, and that was always fun. It was a little stressful and tedious during the whole time. Just, you know, COVID, wearing a mask, and, you know, just kind of the climate of everything that was happening. But generally, me and my wife have been doing fine. You know, we both have jobs. Job security has been fine. My job has been actually great. Just been working from home. So I think generally we're just kind of tired and fatigued like everyone else. We just kind of want everything to go back to normal. But, you know, in all honesty, we've been good. I've been spending a lot of time out here in the shop, just kind of getting projects done. So yeah, thanks for asking. I'm doing all right.
Next question from Anhad Sami. Don't know how to say that right.
Yeah.
Do you think holonomic drives are as effective in combat robotics?
Ooh. Yes, definitely not Emma. Quarantine time is tinkering time. So true. Also, can you guys hear Kim when she reads the questions? Just throw that out there. Holonomic drive, it's kind of like an omni-wheel drive. You have, I think, 3 or 4 wheels, and they kind of have, God, I wish you know what? I'll be right back. I think I have one. It's a pretty fun thing to say. Yes.
He's pulling out giant things of things. Hey, Scamper.
Scamper kit. I got this a long time ago and I've never done anything with it. I think it was a gift from a vendor. Yeah, that's what these are. So you got these wheels that obviously rotate this way, but then they have rollers that can slide left or right. And it's very similar to like a mechanism drive, but mechanism drive kind of works off of a 45-degree bias instead. So you get a bunch of these together, and if you turn them in a certain configuration, the bot can go along, you know, the XY axis just by how you're turning them. Because if you have them positioned at a perpendicular, if this one's turning, it's going to slide the rollers on that one. So how that applies to combat robots, it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're a control bot, if you're a hammer bot, if you're a bot to where the positioning is very critical, some kind of drive like this can be very beneficial because you really need to focus on, you know, getting that weapon exactly where it needs to go. I would probably never do this style with a traditional spinner, like a drum. Definitely not a horizontal. You lose a lot of traction and you lose a lot of horsepower in your actual pushing, so you're going to give that up, but what you're going to gain is positioning. So you're going to be able to position the robot better. So you got to just kind of think about what you're trying to accomplish. For every single one of my suggestions, I always say, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your design goals? Focus on your design goals and see if something like this fits into them. If you have a specific design that might not work well with a standard forward and backward and turning drive, maybe this could be the way to go, but you have to take into account the extra weight and the extra complexity, the extra fragileness, and the other downsides that go along with it. So that is my answer. I think it can be applicable if you're trying to solve the right problems.
All right, I'm going to take one from chat so we don't get too behind.
Yeah.
Chris Polk asks, what are your favorite non-motorized tools?
Ooh, favorite non-motorized tools. Good question. I'm really liking this Noga deburring tool. I had this in my holiday chat holiday gift guide. This is a Noga NG9300, I think is the kit, and it's just a deburring tool, but you can see it has this little thing on the end of it and it spins, and so you just kind of put it in the hole like that and spin it around. It's a really quick deburring tool, and as you can see, it always lives down here. I really like that. What other tools do I like a lot that are non-electronic, non-motorized?
Non-motorized calipers.
Non-motorized calipers. I really like
oh yeah, your ball and mill or
ball screw thing.
Yeah.
These guys, I really like this set. I have, these are always on my workbench. I have a set of, these are Imperial and metric. These are super nice. I like having them in the set. I think they're ball drive up to like here and back. These are really nice. What else am I using like on a daily basis? I could be all hipster and say like a notebook and a pen, you know, is my most used.
Oh.
But I don't know. I use a lot of hand tools just in general, and I don't have like favorites. I use a lot of screwdrivers. Yeah, just basic hand tools. But I definitely like the Allen keys. I try and do Allen key for everything. And yeah, the little deburring tool has been a fun one lately. So I'm going to stick with that answer.
All right. So go back to the
List.
actual list.
Okay.
I know that no weapon is better than the other, but if you were given the choice between a vertical and a drum, which would you choose?
Ooh, the good old classic vertical versus drum.
Yes.
So the vertical versus drum is a good question. Someone said they can barely hear my wife. Cool. Yeah, she's like over there a few feet. Vertical versus drum is a really good question. I think this once again comes down to what are you trying to solve? What are you trying to accomplish? A drum is going to generally have a much smaller effective diameter. Therefore, if you're spinning a vertical bar thing and a drum, maybe the vertical bar is bigger, the drum is smaller. If you're spinning them at the same RPM, your tip speed is going to be lower on the drum. It's going to be higher on the bar because it's further out from that center of axis, right? So the further out you get with the same RPM, the faster the tip speed because it has to move more, it has to move a larger diameter. In addition to that, MOI, moments of inertia, is further out. Your weight is further out towards the outside, therefore you're generally going to get more kinetic energy. So by that explanation, you think that a drum would be less desirable because the other has a faster tip speed for the same RPM and it's going to have more kinetic energy. However, the problem with that is you have a, looking at it head on now, you have much less contact area because it's a lot more narrow, whereas a drum is a lot larger. So it really depends. The four-wheel drive vertical is so popular because four-wheel drive gives you a lot of maneuverability so you can get that weapon exactly where it needs to go. And if you have some feeder wedges or something in the front to feed into it, it's a good combo. The drum suffers from just being this long thing that spins really high RPM to get up to that tip speed, so you lack a little bit of maneuverability, but you have a much larger effective hitting area. What's your driving style? What are you trying to accomplish? If you're maybe not a very precise driver and maybe not very strategic, a drum is a good way to go because you can just put the center towards them and just smash. But if you're maybe a little bit more precise and like a little bit more strategy, maybe the vertical spinner is better.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have some love coming to us from Brazilian fans and asking if we're going to come to Brazil to fight Battlebots.
Yeah, you guys are tenacious. Every live stream I have, you keep inviting me to Brazil, and thank you. Maybe once all these travel restrictions and everything are done, maybe we make a trip to Brazil. I'm going to ask you a question. How often do you have competitions? I know nothing about the competitions in Brazil. So yeah, I'm going to ask that of you.
Yeah. Cool.
And you know what? When Kim finds the next question, I'm gonna do the YouTube thing and plug something here. So in the chat, you see that little $sign. So I just enabled that on my channel. I saw it on another live stream. If you click that little $sign and then do some other stuff, it sends me money. So I don't know if someone wants to try that out. That'd be pretty cool. But if you guys do want to help contribute to my channel, that little $sign is how you can do that. No obligation. I don't care either way. But if you want to, every single dollar that comes through on there is 100% going to get dumped into tools and stuff in the shop. So just FYI, if you want to support the channel, that's the way that you can do it.
All right. Next question from Emma, who I'm guessing is definitely not Emma
Definitely
in the chat.
Definitely not Emma.
She asks, are there any plans for a new ant-weight robot or new version of crippling depression?
Yeah. New crippling depression or new ant-weight. I don't know yet. I definitely am going to do another ant-weight. I just haven't really landed on anything. I think I'm probably going to revamp and resurrect Sergeant Cuddles. I definitely want to do kind of like a almost 10-year anniversary. I don't think it's there yet, but maybe some kind of 10-year anniversary thing. I'm definitely going to bring back Cuddles, but I'm going to make it completely different, completely modern. I've been looking at magnesium. I want it to be something different and crazy, but I really haven't found that gotcha thing that is just like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So definitely going to do an ant-weight, but it's most likely going to be a Sergeant Cuddles reboot, I guess. Reboots are popular right now. Crippling depression, I don't think crippling depression is going to go through any major, hey, look at that, someone did the $5.
Yay!
Awesome, yay, money! Thanks, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't think crippling depression is going to go through any major revisions. I think it's going to go maybe some other path. It might get to be a new robot if I change it drastically. There's nothing really to fix with crippling depression. It just maybe needs slightly larger wheels to get a little bit better drive. But other than that, I just don't know what else to do with it. So, yep. Oh, Lieutenant Cuddles gets a promotion.
Lieutenant Cuddles.
General Cuddles. Admiral Cuddles. I don't know, ranks.
I'm sorry to say that your channel hasn't been sponsored. It's your beard.
Oh.
That is some beard money for all of the oils that you use.
Fair.
Okay, so we'll go to a chat question from Joseph. Do you think bushings are underused in combat robots?
Yeah, bushings versus bearings. This is an age-old question. Let me just say this. A lot of people have good luck with bushings. I am not one of them. Every time I've used bushings, I've been Joseph Duchesne. Joseph D. Yay!
Joey D.
Joey D. What was I saying? Oh, I was saying stuff about bushings and bearings. I have never had luck with bushings. However, if you guys know my style and my bots, I have very rigid fixed weapons. That does not work well with bushings. Bushings are not precision fit things, so that if you do use bushings, you're going to have a little bit of lateral play, really no matter which way you do it, because the brass or the bronze is going to be softer and you're always going to kind of dent it. So I just don't, my style doesn't work well with bushings. A lot of people have a lot of success with bushings. You know, Ray Billing uses bushings. A lot of really heavy hitting bots use them. It's just not for me. I'm more of a bearing guy. In any of my horizontals, like in Psychotic Break, I tried bushings and the weapon just had too much flex overall and it ran into issues. So yeah, I prefer bushings or bearings. I prefer bearings, but bushings can totally work depending on your design if you allow for that little bit of flexure.
All right.
I think was there more in chats?
More what?
Questions in chat?
Yeah, I'm going back and forth.
Cool.
So one from pre-submitted, Brandon asks, what similarities have you noticed throughout all the weight classes?
Ooh.
Which is an interesting question.
Yeah, interesting question. Who was that?
Brandon.
Brandon asks about similarity between weight classes. Yeah, it's a great question. It's a tough question though. The competition is the same. I think would you agree with that, Kim? Like the actual doing of the competition is pretty much the same in all the weight classes. Mm-hmm. There's still like the same jitters. There's still the unknown. In your mind, you're like, oh, I'm going to drive around and I'm going to get to the wheels and I'm going to do this. And it never really happens like that. Outland. Yay! Thank you, Outland. That is Outland. I think the driving and the unexpected and the unknowns is exactly the same. The smaller ones have just so much more power to weight ratio. It's just so much power packed into little things. What a lot of people don't realize is that when you start getting heavier and heavier, the mass really sloppifies. It makes the driving a lot sloppier. Like when you watch Copperhead on TV, which you will hear very soon, it just likes to slide around a lot. And that's really not because of bad drive. It's just that, you know, you've got 10 horsepower worth of drive propelling 200 pounds. It's not going to naturally want to stop on its own. So that coefficient of friction on the tires changes because you're just moving so much weight and there's a lot of momentum. But the gyro forces, the design of them, all those things are the same. I would say that when you go up in the weight classes, working on them becomes different. I don't think it becomes easier or harder. It's maybe easier to work on an ant weight, but it's kind of fiddly and small. So when you work on the big stuff, it's just like, oh, I can get my hands in there and get to stuff, but everything's heavy. You got to think about picking it up and moving it to a workbench, things like that. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of discussion here. I don't want to get too into it, but
yeah,
the heavier stuff just gets heavier, and a lot of the principles just carry over. Quite frankly, it's very similar, more similar than not. What you got?
All right, Outland asked in the chat, which machine in this year's lineup do you think has the most potent drive system?
Ooh, I have an immediate answer for that. Tantrum.
Oh yeah.
Tantrum.
Tantrum.
I'll give it away. I'm not giving any spoilers away, but Tantrum actually went with a brushless setup, but they're using, what do they use? Instead of the Hall effect sensors that everyone else is using, they're actually using optical encoders. I believe they're optical encoders. An encoder has much greater resolution. Like with ours, we can do, I think it's 3. You can just basically detect the phases when they change. I'm not going to get too into it, but they're using an optical encoder, so they have a significantly higher granularity in being able to determine the position. Watch for Tantrum. Their drive is fantastic. I'd say Tantrum actually has the best drive, surprisingly.
All right, let's go back to the pre-submitted.
Pre-submitted.
Matthew T asks, or says, I saw your video on HFI, high frequency injection. Can this be used on smaller robots with a cheap brushless ESC? Is it useful for drivetrains or just a weapon?
That is a great question. Asking about HFI and how it can be used, or if it can be used on smaller bots. Can it be used on smaller bots? Probably. HFI right now is pretty specific to VESC controllers. Could you get a VESC controller that's small enough? Yes, you could. I'm going to ask my classic question, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Why are you trying to use HFI? I don't think that at the smaller weight class HFI really makes a lot of sense, because that initial inertia is what you're trying to overcome with HFI. You're trying to get that positioning in those first few couple revolutions, and then it kicks up. If you have those issues in a much smaller bot, you have the options going with a slightly bigger motor, a slightly bigger ESC. There's a lot of little things. Oh, Aaron Hill.
Yeah.
Encoder on shaft. Magnetic encoder. Sorry, not optical, magnetic. You have the options of going with some slightly bigger motor. You can do the other things. HFI should be used as a last resort in the smaller bots. Tune HL or BL Heli a little bit more, tune your Simon K a little bit more, maybe increase the motor size, change some other things. I would not use HFI on the smaller robots. I just don't think it makes sense. On the big bots, if you have this 50-pound mass that you're trying to move, it's complicated and you kind of need HFI. So I would look elsewhere for HFI.
All right.
Yeah.
In the chat, Brinstead is asking about a swag update. If we were, I don't know what we're doing with stickers or things this year.
Yeah. Swag is hard. I like the idea of swag, and I like the idea of people getting stickers and things, but shipping sucks. It is really annoying to get, a payment in or something. And it's like, oh, you got to ship it out, and then it becomes a PO box, and it's too big for that. And they're national, and then it gets rejected or it gets lost. I don't want to ship. At the end of the day, it's just not worth my time to ship all this stuff out. I wish I could just have like a little drop box outside my house. You could stop by, pick up your stickers, put in $5. Awesome. I don't mind giving them out for free, but I just don't want to ship stuff out. That's the biggest issue. So I don't know. If you look on my Facebook page, I have a link on there that says send me a message, and if you send me a self-addressed stamped envelope with your return information on it, I'll stuff in some stickers and drop it off on the mailbox. But beyond that, it's a hassle to sell stuff and ship stuff out. And additionally, we can't really sell Battlebots related merchandise because Battlebots kind of owns some certain aspects. So, if I wanted to sell my own t-shirt for Copperhead, that's not really something we can do with Battlebots. So stickers, something else.
Matthew T again asks, how do you test 250-pound Battlebots before coming to competition? It seems extremely dangerous. It totally is.
Yeah, testing 250-pound Battlebots. There's two camps. There's the people that don't test their robots, and then there's the people that say that they don't test their robots. People do test their 250-pound robots. A lot of people act like you should never turn on the weapon outside the arena. We do. We actually do that. You can definitely tell who hasn't tested their weapon before they show up. It's usually pretty obvious. The thing that we do is we have a separate power for drive, separate power for the weapon, so we don't turn on the drive. And what I do here in the workshop, it's right over there, is the front forks of Copperhead rest on the ground. And when the drive is off, it actually takes a bit of force to get it moving because those front forks are dragging. So I actually use 3M very high bond tape, VXB tape, and I actually tape all the front forks down to the ground. And you have to actually use a pry bar to get the bot off of the ground. So we actually use that for weapon testing. We don't move the bot, we move everything else around it so it can't hit anything, and we'll just use that for spin-up testing, which you've seen on my channel before. That's pretty much all we do. We never, ever, ever drive it with the weapon on because the gyroscopic forces are just way too unpredictable. So that is simply just for ramping up the weapon and testing that response. And then we just drive the hell out of it out in the street and in the subdivision. We just drive it and drive it and drive it and drive it until we're, smoking the tires out. So we test the drive and then we test the weapon, but we do them very separately. And yeah, it is dangerous. It is inherently dangerous. But I always say, just building the bot, you're already at a risk level. Just having it, you could wire something wrong, plug in the batteries, and the whole thing explodes. There's a lot of inherent risk. So minimize the risk as much as you can.
Well said.
Thank you.
From the chat, Jacob Colton says, "Hey Robert, hope you're having a good day. Hope to fight you at some point. What are your thoughts on designing a fairy weight? Would you ever build one?"
Oh, designing a fairy weight. I don't think I have enough patience in my life for a fairy weight. I love fairy weights. I really do. But I'll be brutally honest. At the end of the day, you spend all of this time getting aluminum screws and shaving things down and making things as lightweight as possible, because of course I would do a weapon. And you make this thing as lightweight as possible, and then it's just like, it's just like this little insect inside the arena. I'm not saying that they're not cool. They are cool, but I want to see a bigger smash, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't done an ant weight again. I like the bigger smash and the bigger breaking. They're fantastic, but it's just a design challenge that I'm not willing to take for the trade-off. But they're awesome.
So Chris Polk, who asked about your non-motorized favorite tool, he asked now your favorite motorized but non-CNC tool.
Motorized, not CNC tool. That's an easy one. Drill press. I've grown to really enjoy the Nova Voyager drill press. I know it's spendy. I know it's like a $1,500–$1,600 drill press, but the fact that I can go from 50 RPM to 5,500 RPM without changing a belt. I mean, check this out. So I can go down to this speed where it's just barely going around. This is really great for deburring, stuff like that. And then if I want to go crazy, that is incredibly useful for sanding. I use that a lot of time for sanding, for grinding, things like that. I really like it. It's a very versatile tool. That or my Bosch driver. I use a driver a lot. I tend to not use hand tools. If you ever see me at a competition, I never take off the top with an Allen key. I always use this. With adjustable torque settings, you can take something apart a lot quicker than with hand by a screwdriver. So this is probably my most used tool in the shop. I use it all the time. It's a great form factor. I don't have big hands, and it's just a really small, it doesn't have much depth to it. I like this.
So I'm going to give priority to this because it came attached with $5. Stupid Robot Fighting League. He says, "Have you tried mowing the lawn with Copperhead?"
I haven't tried mowing the lawn. Thank you for the money, by the way. I haven't tried mowing the lawn with Copperhead. However, the very first, you remember this, the very first time we turned on the weapon, we did it outside. We have a relatively good-sized yard, and the back of our house opens to open space and stuff like that. So we set it in the backyard. We have a walkout, so we were up on the deck, which is on the second level, looking down at it, controlling it remotely, all that good stuff. And it made, kind of a nice little divot in the ground. And it's weird because it really wasn't in contact with the ground. It just, the airflow just made this nice little divot in the ground. So, yeah.
All right.
He asked something else earlier about music.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we have a backlog. You let me
Oh.
handle this.
I'll go quicker.
Okay. Daniel asked, what new technology that appeared in this Battlebot season did you most like / found interesting?
Oh, ooh, that's a tough one because it could be spoilery.
Oh, new technology?
Yeah, what new technology showed up in this year?
If you're fishing for Chomp, we're not going to say Chomp.
I'm not going to say Chomp. No, I'm not going to say Chomp. I'm not going to talk about Chomp. I don't know. Let me think about that. I'll get back to that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the pretty
Because I don't think there was a lot new this year.
Like brand new technology. There were magnets, whereas we didn't, but nobody really.
That's not new. You know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to say HFI. A few teams were using HFI, and minor spoiler alert, it worked well for Copperhead. The drum is a very different weapon than what it was last year because of HFI. So I'll say HFI.
All right.
Yeah, I think game changer.
Craig Bowie says, are you going to display the giant net near your Sonowayachi arm? That is spoilers, sir.
That is a spoiler. Craig, I
Not
don't know if they can hear you, but yeah, Craig asked if I am going to display the giant nut next to my Waiachi arm, and I actually have a place, wait a minute, almost got me. Yeah, I don't know where the giant nut would go. I feel like it would be better out here.
If you got a giant nut, it'd probably be in the living room with spotlights.
Yeah, it'd be in the living room. It would be, I would just make a necklace and carry it around everywhere and be like, hey, have I told you about my giant nut?
Oh, whoops. All right, let's see. Yeah, now we get to Stupid Robot Fighting League. What music do you listen to when you're doing a build?
That is actually a better question than you might think. Stupid Robot Fighting League asked about what music I listen to. Almost every bot has a theme CD or something that I listen to a lot while designing it. I'm trying to think of specifics. I was thinking about this the other day though. Psychotic Break is actually Kanye West, Life of Pablo. That was the CD that was primarily what I listened to while designing Psychotic Break. Lolo Man was, I'm trying to think of all these now, but I definitely do have a kind of a specific mood or tone for every bot that I do. And I'll kind of find a CD that kind of works for that mood. Lolo Man was Dirty 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Dirty 3 is like a jazz trio that's kind of strange and a little bit offbeat and kind of moody. And yeah, Lolo Man was all Dirty 3. So yeah, there's actually a heavy bit of music influence for all of the bots.
Copperhead was what, like Metallica and Wonderwall?
Yeah, Copperhead.
Not our choice.
I'm not going to point out any names here, but we have a couple people on our team that their musical taste has been stuck in time. And so we definitely ended up with a lot of just kind of 90s rock anthem playlists. So yeah, Copperhead kind of has like an old school, trying to think of some of the bands, but yeah, just like, Metallica Black Album, like, it's very kind of old school. So yeah.
Definitely not Emma asked, what weight class is the easiest to get into, ant or beetle weight?
Easiest weight class to get into, ant or beetle, I would say depends on who you are. Ant weight, if you're really, really, really new to doing all this, if you're just brand new to building, period, ant weight's going to be a little bit easier. Beetles can be just brutal. But the beetles have the added value of having more weight. So with an ant weight, you run into a lot of weight restrictions and you end up just building a beetle that's underweight. So if you're kind of bad with restrictions, a beetle weight's probably going to be easier, but there's a high level of competition right now. So an ant is going to be easier for certain reasons and the beetle's going to be easier for other reasons. But generally, I would always say an ant weight.
All right. I hesitate saying this question because it's embarrassing to me. Harrison says, who is responsible for the beautiful Jojo art for the live stream thumbnail?
Yes. So yeah, all of the artwork for all of the live streams are done by my wife.
Hi.
Where is she? Oh wait, hold on.
On delay.
Yep, there she is.
Hi.
So Kim does all the artwork for everything, and
And
she will be, and Copperhead, and she will be on, this season with me. So if you watch Discovery Channel, she'll be on there. She does all the artwork, and we were trying to think of what to do for this episode, and I don't know, randomly out of the blue, I'm just like, Jojo! And like, it took you, what, like 15 minutes to bang that out?
I love that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Kim does all the artwork. She does all my stickers. She actually does most all of the stickers for Luke, Rickety Cricket, Kitten Mittens. She's done all the stickers for him. And Rumham.
Everyone really likes your drill press.
Dude, the drill press is great.
That's awesome.
You know, the one thing I'll say about it is it does have some gimmicky features that I don't end up using, but the fact that it has like a vibration sensor built in, if that thing starts to kind of shudder and shake, you can actually have a setting, which I do have enabled, that it will turn off and actually break the thing. It's got some really cool features, and most drill presses are basically just drill presses. This one has a couple little things up its sleeve, so I like it.
All right.
Worth the cash.
Outland says, how's the new arena floor this year?
Oh, how's the new arena floor? The arena floor is really nice. I just saw a post today from Jameson of Sawblaze, and he was complaining about the floor. I've got no complaints. Another $5. Woo!
Wow.
The floor is good. I don't know. Copperhead rides on the front forks, scrapes the floor. We had no issues. I don't think do you remember, did we ever really get stuck?
The only people who got stuck was with the Killsaw slots.
Yeah, the
like,
Killsaw slots are...
Yeah.
Spoiler! The Killsaw slots are still a little bit of a problem, but I really liked the floor this year. Just, it felt stable. The other floor felt bouncy. This one feels nice.
Yes. Sorry, I got lost.
No, it's okay.
Let me ask a live stream Q&A. We have... Isogen said they participated in the very first FRC way back in the mid-90s.
I remember this one.
And kind of lost touch, and a lot has changed since the 90s. Do you have any recommendations for someone looking to get back into robotics?
Yeah, someone looking back to get in... Wow.
Yeah.
let me start over. Someone looking to get back into robotics. Check the link down below in the description. There's my Getting Started guide. The best way to get back into combat robots is to get involved in the community, just like what you're doing right now. I say this because it's ever changing. If you put in a bot right now that was built off of the competition 2 years ago, you're going to have a bad time. It is constantly evolving, constantly changing. Every year there's kind of a new meta, and you kind of have to keep up with it. So it really helps to get on the forums, get on the groups, chat with people, and figure out, kind of what's going on right now. The information gets stale and old pretty quickly. Go to a competition, talk to people, go on Facebook, kind of, figure out what's going on, and build a bot, and just build something. Just build something. It's going to be terrible. Sergeant Cuddles lost its first 2 fights, and I was out of the competition within like 10 minutes, so it's going to happen. Just get out there and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Try it.
In the chat, Gregory Sanford asks, what do you think is the most effective way for getting more people into the sport?
Ooh, effective way to get more people into the sport. I think what I'm doing, I'm trying to lower the barrier to entry, and I'm trying to give people a reason to get into it. It's cool. It's a really cool hobby. It's one of the few hobbies where there is no end game, right? I've been doing a lot of hobbies like photography and audio and other stuff, and there's just no way to hit the end game of combat robots. The best combat robots out there can still be defeated with like a $200 D2 kit. It's constantly evolving. There's always new stuff to learn, and let's say you just start winning every competition, then you can get creative like Hal does and start building really interesting and pretty bots. So there's always something to do, and I think if you have that tickle where you want to constantly be building and designing, this is your sport. You can just do it infinitely.
I'm enjoying the chat right now.
Is it good? Let me get a chance to look at it.
Emma says, Robert in the grocery store. Hey, have you seen my giant nut?
Pretty much. I think all my coworkers are getting really tired about me talking about Battlebots. Every meeting is just like, well, in Battlebots.
All right. Alex asks, what aspects of this year filming of Battlebots were better or worse than last year's? And which event did you enjoy more?
Yeah, aspects of Battlebots this year that were better and worse. I'm going to kind of ping you for that. I think better was, I liked that we felt more appreciated.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, nothing against Battlebots, but last year we just kind of felt like we were meat. We were just there just to kind of fill the seats, and we weren't like an important aspect of the competition, which of course the builders are. This year I felt like we were much more appreciated, and our requests and demands and things were taken into consideration. Like it was actually considered how we were treated. I liked that.
I liked that we got to actually be the audience, and we got to see live fights this year.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a big one. Last year, we didn't get to see any of the fights. There's TVs everywhere in the pit, so you get to watch them, but it's very, very, very different than watching it live. And this season, with the opera boxes, which you guys saw last week, we got to be in the audience. So the Tombstone Endgame fight that just happened, we were literally watching that live. So it was cool that we got to see a lot of really good fights, just like that. Just kidding. Oh, we're going around, knocked out Rod in like 10 seconds?
Oh,
yeah, it was so cool. No, there's a lot of really interesting fights. And I'd say that was really cool that we got to be the audience. And I like the audience, and I like the participation of the audience, but it was also cool that we were the audience. So it felt more kind of homey. I don't know, it felt more like a close-knit community. Everyone there was your team, your club, like from the production crew, everyone it was a lot more tight-knit this year.
Some things we didn't like. I know you didn't like having a COVID test every other day.
Yeah, I had, 7 COVID tests? So we had...
We all did.
Yeah, 1 before you arrived, 2 as soon as you arrived. 1 was like an immediate, and 1 was like a 2-day turnaround.
Yeah.
And then every 3 days you had a test. So yeah, there was a lot of COVID testing, and I don't like stuff being jammed in the back of my throat. So yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it was fine, but it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah,
and it was also
very, very hot.
Yeah, it was like
100 degrees. It was horrible. You will see so many sweaty people in this season.
Yeah, it was 100 degrees. You're in a metal box working on a 250-pound robot.
No fans, wearing a mask.
With a camera in your face, sweating, and yeah, it was uncomfortable this year for sure. It was good.
All right.
What else you got?
Gregory in the chat asks, who do you think has the best beetle weight right now?
Oh.
Who's owning beetle weight? Is Billy a beetle?
Billy's a beetle.
Billy kind of owned the last competition.
Yeah, it's the obvious answer is going to be Billy, Silent Spring, or who's Tommy's new double spinner thing.
I don't know.
Any 3 of those are like, yeah. I don't really have a favorite right now. There's a lot of really good ones. I don't know, I think my favorite is still Lolo Man.
Well.
I don't know. I also like Rickety Cricket. Like, I don't know. I have a lot of favorites. I don't think there's a best. I think you could pick, if you had 10 beetle weights, you could pick any 2 and have one beat the other.
Yeah.
There's
rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, it's rock, paper, scissors. I don't think there's one ultimate.
So Outland, whose name is Tom, asks,
hey, Tom.
Is it considered a faux pas to build a combat robot similar to another team's machine? That is an excellent question.
No. Is it a faux pas to build something similar to someone else's? I think it depends. I think if it's an obvious clone or copy without really taking any liberties of making it better, I don't know how I feel about that, but maybe that could be a faux pas. But how many Sergeant Cuddles clones are out there? I mean, there are dozens of clones, and I appreciate that. I like that. Lolo Man, there was a lot of clones to come out. There's a couple similar versions of Psychotic Break. Malice actually has a lot of design elements from Psychotic Break. So I think if you're adding something to it and you're contributing and you're pushing it a little bit further, I think it's awesome. I think it's actually the best way you could do it. Just making like an exact copy isn't that interesting to me, but
you go to the Chinese competitions and it's all
oh yeah, it's just all clones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. Cloning is, oh, that works. I'm going to make an exact copy of it. That's the way to do it. I think the design and creativity is really what I like best about it, and I think taking someone else's design and making a twist on it or improving it is awesome. Nothing's patented. It's like you're not stealing anything. Spinning up a mass of metal is not. No one has a patent on that.
Well, and in Battlebots, the idea is a smaller fraction of the thing. Like the building it and actually doing it is the thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point, wife. I think I think the thing that a lot of people don't really understand about combat robots is it's really not about, oh, it's a horizontal spinner, oh, it's a vert with a wedge. It's the details. It's the little tiny details. It's the fact that you soldered the pinion gear on and you're using this type of mounting. It's all the little tiny minute details that make a bot good. You look at Bite Force and you're just like, oh, it's just a wedge with 4 wheels. No, it's so much more than that. There's so many little details that make it good. Yeah.
So Jason asks if Copperhead's weapon issues went away.
Did Copperhead's weapon issues go away? In a few weeks, I have a video coming out about that. It's going to be on Discovery Channel. No, you should just, I'm not going to give anything away. The answer is kind of a softish yes. But you should definitely watch the season. You should definitely watch how it goes. We had a better time with the weapon. How about that?
Outland Tom says, how is Copperhead's drum made, and do you know if it's a similar process to Minotaur's drum?
Yeah, how is Copperhead's drum made? So Copperhead's drum, I'm not going to go grab it. It's on the bot right now. It is a rectangle, and it's 4 operations. So you do 1/2. It's all CNC machined. So you machine 1/2, flip it upside down, machine the other half, flip it over, machine the bores in the end, flip it over, machine the other bore. So 1, 2, 3, 4 machining operations to do the whole weapon. I think Minotaur's is done very similarly. There's not a better way to do the asymmetric drums than that. There's just no real other way to do it. So yeah, they're very similar. It's S7, which is a impact-resistant tool steel. We then harden those after it's machined. Then you go and harden it, and yeah, that's really all there is to it. I say that's really all there is to it, but I think the material was like $3,000, and the machining was maybe another $3,000. So they're pretty expensive.
And then sometimes you gotta pop it in the oven for a bit.
Yep. Yeah.
Have you already talked about the imbalanced one?
Okay. Yeah. So both of them actually were unbalanced when we got them. It was a sloppy machine job. It was some guy that really didn't know what he was doing. Took on a little bit too big of a project, and when the top was done and the bottom was done, they weren't perfectly aligned with one another, so the weight was a little bit off. And yeah, we actually had to use our oven, put it in the oven, heat it, and all sorts of stuff. It was a nightmare. But yeah, they're very expensive, and drums are generally more expensive than other weapons to make because they have to be machined like that.
All right, so Matt submitted a question both in the pre-question and in the chat.
Okay.
He says that he loves how your active weapon bots always seem to hit so hard. How do you deal with defense? I've hardly ever seen one of your bots just stop. Do you have any tips and tricks for defensive geometry on a robot that has a larger active weapon?
Aw, I appreciate that. That is how I build my robots. I tend to build them very reliably, and they hit surprisingly hard, and I think it's because I have no real compliance, I guess. My bots are typically very, very rigid. Like if you look at crippling depression, there's no way for that weapon to wobble, or there's no flexure anywhere in that. You got 2 huge bearings, you got a huge shaft that's into a block of aluminum that's into the whole frame. And that's kind of how I do all of my weapons, is the weapon is very rigidly mounted. Some people, like I'm thinking Isaac locally, He has a lot of flex in his robots. The frames flex, the chassis flex, and that helps him absorb impacts. My bots, I tend to make them extremely rigid, so they're just kind of always under tension, and when they hit, I'm hoping that that energy just goes into the other robots. And that's one thing that you'll see from Crippling Depression is the hits don't look very big, but if you look at the damage reports after, it's actually shattering other weapons, shattering frames, and that's because it's just so very rigid. In terms of defense, my defense is there's just a weapon you got to deal with. You got to constantly deal with this stupid spinning weapon. Psychotic Break is a great example of that, to where you can knock it into the wall over and over and over, but it's still not going to stop. And the only reliability issues I've ever had have been, honestly, sloppy wiring. With Psychotic Break, the reason why we didn't get first place is because I had the wire backing loose. I didn't open it up after that one fight and check it. It was just a loose wire. I should have checked it. Yep.
Emma asks, is a 3D printer necessary for lower weight classes or just nice to have?
Oh, Emma is asking about 3D printing in lower classes. I would say today, in this age, in this meta of bots right now, you're doing yourself a drastic disservice by not having a 3D printer. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. I kind of had this concept lately that every tool is literally just a shortcut. You could get out like a little knife and you get a piece of UHMW and you could carve it out. You know, you can do as much as you want with a hand tool, and another tool is just going to help you get to that a lot easier. 3D printing is one of those technologies that you just can't replicate it. You can't replicate the infill, the walls. You can't do what a 3D printer can do by hand. And what it gives you is, like I talked earlier about revamping Sergeant Cuddles, the frame of Sergeant Cuddles is extremely heavy. If I was doing that today out of 3D printed nylon, it would be like a third of the weight and probably just as strong. That's what 3D printing brings to the table. Also, you can prototype infinitely. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it's a massive game changer. Yeah, and by the way, I just got a Prusa Mini, which is like, what, $350? For Ants and Beetle, it's awesome. It's every bit as good as the bigger one. It just has a much smaller footprint, and it's a little bit slower and a bit louder.
All right. Atlan Tom asks, do you think a hub motor would be a viable option for a heavyweight overhead disc weapon motor?
Ooh. Tom was asking about hub motor in heavyweights for overhead. I don't know how to answer that. I really don't have a good answer. A couple people have tried hub motors and it hasn't worked out awesome. Hub motors in the heavyweight are really, really tough. It's the power to weight ratio. In an ant weight, you're not going to split aluminum. You know, it just probably isn't going to happen. At heavyweights, you're going to do it even if it's an inch thick. So I just don't know if you would be able to build the hub motor beefy enough to handle it. Just having the shaft, bearings, and a belt between them just helps so much with that energy transfer in terms of the shock load. So I don't know. I think a hub motor is always going to be problematic in the heavyweights.
Ty Daly, T-I?
Okay.
Ty asks a really good question. I like this. Is there a BattleBot that you looked at and went, I wouldn't do it that way, but then proved you wrong?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think you know me better than me. Do I have one? I've had a lot where it's just the first half.
Yeah, you don't like gimmick bots. Is there a gimmick bot that has ever done, well, shoot, Huge is started off a little gimmicky and he does well.
I got Huge though.
Okay.
I mean, Kim's right. My teammates are going to sit there and like shake their heads. I am very much against gimmick bots. I want them to do the thing. I don't care if it's what everyone else is doing. It needs to do the thing. Chomp. I don't care how cool Chomp is. Can it be a battle bot? If it can, cool. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of gimmick bots, but you know, I'm going to come back and say this. When I very first got into combat robots, one of the first competitions I ever saw was Robo Games, and that was the first year that Hal brought out Black and Blue. And I remember Black and Blue were two 60-pound bots that were basically just a rectangle with a huge bar of aluminum on front. And they were, like every HAL bot, just meant to be absolutely destroyed and to wear out the other guys. I remember thinking, that's a stupid design, it's lazy, you know, it's uninventive, and I didn't understand the concept behind them at first. And the more I saw them fight, I realized, wow, you can't knock these things out. They are impossible to KO. And then I got it. So I think Black and Blue were the first time I really got that. And I think every time since then, I've kind of given bots the benefit of the doubt. Like, I have two categories, and I always say this, I have two categories. I think there's bots that I like for Battlebots, and there's bots that I just plain like. And they're different categories, because some bots I just don't think are really viable for competition, but I like them. Like, you know, Aaron was in here last year's Tantrum. I really, really liked, but it didn't perform very well. It wasn't a good BattleBot, but it was a good bot.
And inventive. And
very inventive,
well
really
done.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just categories, you know.
Outland Tom asked, metric or Imperial?
Both, metric and Imperial. The big thing is that it's hard to find, like, I still don't have a metric drill bit set, because getting like a good Cobalt drill bit set here in the US is actually kind of tricky. Metric fasteners are a lot harder to find. Like if I run into an issue and want to go to the hardware store, I'm gonna have to do Imperial. But if I'm designing in SolidWorks, if I'm designing from scratch, I'm gonna make it Imperial, and I'm gonna stick, or not Imperial, metric. Yeah. I'm gonna stick with metric. But if I'm designing off of an existing piece, I'll design on whatever unit was used to design it. So if it's made in China, I'm gonna use metric. If it was made here in the US, I'm probably gonna stick Imperial. So I actually flip-flop between both.
Mm-hmm. Jason asks, I don't know if this is going to be spoilers, if we're allowed to, but if you got to drive Copperhead this year, do you think we're allowed to say that?
Yeah, because it's not revealing any matchups. We did, Kim and I actually got to drive one fight this season, so you're going to have to wait around for that. I'm obviously not going to say who it was, but I did drive one fight this season. I wasn't happy with my driving last year, and I wanted Copperhead to do better this year, so we let Zach drive the majority of the fights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of the undetermined number of fights.
Yes. I think that was safe. I think we're good.
Copperhead may have competed, I don't know.
We cannot confirm nor deny. Another Robert says, what do you think of the more classic bots entering the arena this season? I'm not quite sure what they're doing yet.
Sao and the classic bots.
Entering the arena. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, all bots are good bots. That's kind of my saying. All bots are good bots. I like them all, and Battlebots is such a paper rock scissors game that any bot can do well. It just needs to have a good strategy and have good luck. So.
Tal Daly asked, once the world stops burning, would you consider traveling to the UK to compete in Buglebots?
Maybe. Buglebots, it's a known fact that I'm not a big Wedge fan. I just don't believe that that's combat robots. I don't think that slapping an angled plane on front of an RC car is really combat, but to each their own. Buglebots really favors wedges, and because they have a pit and because they have that one area in the side, if I was ever going to go to Buglebots, I would 100% bring Lolo Man, and quite frankly, I think Lolo Man could do quite well. I don't know, I'm like lukewarm on it. I think it'd be interesting, but traveling overseas is a big deal. Justify the Beetle? I don't know. I'm lukewarm.
Team Just Cause Robotics says, wow, and I thought Bloodsport's weapon cost a lot.
Oh. Yeah, Bloodsport. I mean, you guys, come on. You guys have it so lucky. You just have a big sheet of metal that you have to water jet cut. Dude, we did that with the whole frame. We had like a 4x8 sheet of 1-inch thick Hardox. Our frame was done like that. So yeah, you think about like I think it was an 80-pound billet of S7. you know, you got the material, then you have the machining, then you have the heat treating. It's expensive, man.
Yeah. Emma says, what weight class is the most fun in your opinion?
Oh, most fun?
Yeah.
It depends on what you're after. It depends on what you think is fun. Remember, it was like the tiers of fun.
Oh,
like it's
yeah.
not fun now, but it's fun later. I think Beetle is overall the most fun. You're never going to bring home a $500 loss. You know, you're not going to lose like $1,000 on your robot like in 10 seconds, unless you do something stupid. Beetle weight, you can have the most bang for the buck. You can have really big, really crazy hits to where the audience is like, whoa! You can have that, but you don't have the large expense of a bigger bot. I haven't built a 12-pounder, but I think 12 would be that nice zone to where it still hits really hard, but you're not going to break the bank. Definitely not 250-pounders.
No.
Battlebots are not the most fun. They're one of the lesser fun of all of them.
Yeah, more stress. The stress outweighs the fun.
Yeah, the stress outweighs it. You know, just changing the battery or swapping out a motor is just like, oh, it's going to take like 2 hours to do this. It's just, they're big, they're heavy, they're slower to work on. Yeah.
Daniel asks, are you going to make post-fight commentary videos this season?
Yes, I am 100% going to do post-fight commentaries. There's going to be a few of them coming up. Yes, 100% going to do that. I'm actually going to use clips from Battlebots this year. I avoided doing that last year because of copyright takedowns, but I had some conversations with Battlebots and Discovery, and as long as it is done in the style of what I'm trying to do, they're going to be okay with it. So yeah, I will definitely be doing post-fights.
All right. Akshay Mystery asks, how would you feel about a one configuration rule so that your BattleBot has to counter as many matchups in one configuration as possible, like not adding thicker armor for certain...
Yeah, the one configuration rule, I've been toying with the idea of the opposite. I was toying with the idea that you would get a team together and it would be like Pokemon or something. I know nothing about Pokemon, but you would have like 3 bots on a team and you would have different matchups. So you'd have like 1 wedge, 1 vertical, 1 horizontal, something like that. I think it's a bummer that you have certain bot styles that will win until they can't win. Like a lifter might never win a competition, but they're going to always get pretty far in the competition. So I think it would be cool to have something to where you have a team with a couple different varieties and you kind of pick which bot's going to go against the other one. But I do like the concept of a single configuration, but man, I think it's just going to force everyone into a wedge or a vertical. I think it's going to force one type of bot every time.
Jessica said that the disc they used against Scorpios was only $500.
Oh my god, yeah, $500 for a weapon. I mean, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. Our weapon shafts cost more than that. Thankfully, they were provided by Avid CNC for all your CNC routing needs. Seriously, Avid CNC was one of our really big sponsors this year, and they used the machines that they use to make the parts for their machines. They did all of our machining and fabrication for the new stuff this year, and it was awesome. And we ran, it's tremendous. we ran solid S7 shafts this year. They were beautiful, but a solid S7 shaft, fully machined down to the exact size, and then heat treated. Yeah, each shaft was probably about $500 if we didn't have the sponsor helping.
Jacob asks, what would your definition be for a gimmick bot?
Ooh, my definition for what a gimmick bot is. I'm going to say that's simple. I think I've said this whole live stream, what's the problem you're trying to solve, what are your design goals, and what's your accomplishment that you're trying to achieve. I think a gimmick bot is when those answers to those questions are not directed towards the core of what a combat robot is, i.e. it has to have a certain design aesthetic, it has to try something that's never been done before, or it has to fit into like some niche of like, oh, it's an animal, like, you know, not being mean here, but I think Sharkoprian is that. It's more a shark than it is a combat robot. I think last year when it had the spinner on the head, that was cool. You know, it had a little bit of something going on, but this year with like the crusher, it's not the right geometry for any of the bots that are out there. So you're trying to stick with the idea of being a shark more than you are the effectiveness. And I am very much a design-driven person. Every choice I make with a bot is checking against that original design idea of, is it accomplishing this goal? Lolo Man, is it as short as possible without hurting the original design of it being a combat robot? And so that's kind of my definition of a gimmick, is when you're straying too far away from what it's supposed to be.
Team Just Cuz, do you think that walker bots or other non-wheel designs will ever become a new meta, or will it remain a niche, rare thing in the combat bots world? Seems like they're getting popular in Beetles.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the question on if they're ever going to be popular walker bots. I think in Battlebots, no. I don't think there's a reason to have them. There is a reason to have them. I don't think they're ever going to become popular, and I don't think they're ever going to become successful. You heard it here first, folks. I don't see them solving the issue. So you want to do a walker because you get the extra weight, but the extra delicate nature of them and the amount of weight that you have to add to the robot, think about it. If you're going to add 100 pounds of armor and 100 pounds in a drive system so that you can get an extra 200 pounds, it just doesn't add up. You're adding so much more complexity, and all of that weight is going into the complexity. So you really don't get to add, there's not a walker out there that has a 200-pound weapon. It isn't out there. So I just don't ever think it's going to become meta. But at the Beetle weight class, you have that, the power to weight ratio is much different, so it makes more sense. You have weight to spare.
Oh, Isaac Mallers.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about the escalating barrier of entry in Beetle weights as veterans get more and more competitive, specifically Norwalk?
Yeah. Isaac is talking about the competitiveness of Beetles. It's getting a little problematic. Like, I'm not going to pat myself on the back right here, but I'm looking around. I'm seeing a CNC router, another CNC. Like, I'm looking at all these tools. And could I just drop $1,000, build a Beetle weight, and win a competition? No, I can't. Even with all the tools and experience and stuff that I have, you can't just go out and basically buy a competition or buy a first place. So I think that speaks to how difficult it is in the Beetle weight class right now. So that being said, there's a lot of people, Isaac, you're one of them, that are doing very creative things to try and solve that problem. I don't think this is a sport that you can just simply throw money at. You have to be kind of creative. And Aaron from Tantrum was in here earlier, and we know what he's working on. There's new stuff to be done out there that is not necessarily expensive, but the idea of you going out to a hobby store and buying a couple of motors and slapping some Lego wheels on it, you just can't do that. That ship has sailed. It's a little bit discouraging, but I like that you're pushing the design further. Like, what if the NFL was just casual, dads out in the field playing tag touch football? No one wants to watch that. You want to watch the elite. And I feel that the amateur stuff is getting into that elite territory. And, at the end of the day, don't we want to watch the elites fighting? Or do we want to watch, 20 years ago when Battlebots were just like
huge hit there.
Yeah, huge hit. There was maybe a spark. This is the world that we're living in. The bots have gotten just so crazy that if you watch Beetle weight competitions now, they can have massive hits for the full 3 minutes and they still work. So that's the trade-off. That's the plus side of the downside of it being very hard to get into.
Meanwhile, I feel like there is some effort being put into newcomers, like the plastic ant category and student competitions. I think there's still a space for that, but I don't want to watch it on TV. I'm sorry.
Yeah, true. But 3D printing, brushless motor, electronics, a lot of stuff has gotten a lot better. So as much as it's hard to be very competitive, look at what the newcomers are bringing. Look at someone that is taking and 3D printing a chassis out of nylon, throwing in a brushless motor. that stuff was unheard of 10 years ago. You take a beginner bot today and bring it back 10 years, it would dominate. So, everything is just ratcheting up.
Fat Talks the Great asks,
great.
how many of the mini snake bots do you use at once?
Oh,
just two.
Yeah, we used 2 mini snake bots at once. I think that was just the number of controllers that we could have concurrent, and also team members.
It was the number of people. Yeah, it was 1 controller per mini snake, and we only had 4 people. So.
Yeah, we had 4 people, and we also have to operate the hammers and the other things. So yeah, we only had 2 running at one time.
Yep. Emma asks, what materials or alloys do you value the most in combat robotics?
Ooh, what materials and alloys? I'm going to go with, I just saw Team Cuz Robotics, titanium. Yeah. I love titanium. If there's an excuse for me to use titanium, I will always use it. It's one of my favorite materials. But as you can see, I don't use it very often. There's only 1 titanium piece in Crippling Depression. Psychotic Break has no titanium in it. No. Not anymore. I really like titanium when you can use it, but it doesn't always make sense because it's still heavy. But I will always use titanium in place of steel unless it's the weapon. I won't use titanium anymore for the weapon, but I don't... Too springy. Yeah, I don't think any of my bots now have a structural steel component. It's always going to be titanium instead. So titanium's really cool, and I love carbon fiber. I'm really liking the carbon fiber frame with Psychotic Break. Carbon fiber is just neat, people.
Emma knew it would be titanium.
Of course it's titanium. But okay, I know you always forget about carbon fiber, but this is like, what, 1.5 millimeter, 2 millimeters? Look at this. How cool is that? It's like metal, but it feels like plastic. Can you feel that? Feel that?
I know, it feels like plastic, but it's...
Oh, carbon fiber is cool. I really like carbon fiber. It's a little bit harder to work with, but, like was said above, any material is a great material if you know how to use it. I've been using the heck out of PLA lately. I really like PLA. It has its benefits. So...
So that kind of answered Outland's question. Titanium, overhyped. Steel, underrated.
Yeah,
I would say no.
I think, steel, I'm not a big steel fan. I think if cost is no object and you are choosing steel, you have to understand why you're trying to use steel. Steel is really heavy. It can be strong, but strong is kind of a vague term. I think steel is great for weapons. And obviously fasteners, because I'm not going to do titanium fasteners everywhere. If I could, I totally would. It's very cost prohibitive. But I just don't think steel has a place in most modern combat robots if you can get around a different material. It's cost.
Daniel asks, are flamethrowers actually effective? And
someone very immediately answered no, and I agree with that.
Yep.
They're an audience pleaser. Yep. They're 2 things. They make the audience happy. They make the judges happy. It hides the fact that there's no real damage being done, and it's a way around the active weapon rule.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they accomplish. But if you're driving a bot and you see your bot engulfed in flames, your strategy changes. You want to drive away. So I think it's strategic. If you're pinned up against the bot and they're just, dousing you in flames, you're going to drive away, which might not be your standard action. You might still want to push. So it changes your driving technique.
Yeah, and I would say last year when we fought Gruff has really good flamethrowers. And the only thing it did was made our wheels a little sticky.
Yeah, which is awesome. Gruff has a badass flamethrower. Their flamethrower is really, really solid this year. It was solid last year. The problem with Battlebots is if you look really closely, you'll see a tape line around the edge. I think it's like a few feet in from the floor. There's a line of tape, and you weren't allowed to use your flamethrower past that line if it was facing out. And so the idea is that you want to pin someone against the wall and then turn on your flamethrower. You can't pin someone in the middle of the arena, so yeah, it was a big problem.
Well, FedEx says
they don't?
thought flamethrowers didn't count. I honestly don't know.
I think in some competitions they do. I think in Battlebots they don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, what was the California one? Robo Games?
Yeah, I think in Robo Games they might. Yeah. So I could be wrong on that, but yeah, maybe not from the technical standpoint, but they do kind of look like an active weapon. So.
Ty asks, is there a robot or robots that didn't show up for this season that you wished were there?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted Death Roll back.
Oh, yeah.
Death Roll is one of my favorites.
This isn't spoilers, is it? They already released. No. Oh, yeah, it's on the website.
It's aired. It's already aired. We know who's in it. Trying to think of who else. Oh, Duck, the new Duck. I really wanted to see the new Duck. I don't. Sorry, Hal. I don't think it was going to do very well. The beak mechanism is fantastic, but I don't know how effective it would have been. But yeah, I just wanted to see Duck with all of the new revamped weapons out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tyler Cook says, I'm still sort of a beginner in SolidWorks and wanted to know if you have any tips for finding and deciding belt circumferences.
Oh, yeah, I'll be honest, I'm really bad at belt stuff in SolidWorks, so I'll tell you what I do. What I do is I just Google the calculators online, belt circumference, diameter, calculator, whatever. I Google it online, then I will 3D print a mock-up, and I'll literally just put it on my workbench or put it on a 2x4, nail it together, and then use a piece of string and double check it. You just can't, with belts, you just can't really model it effectively. We have the same thing with Copperhead. It says one thing on paper, and you still have to add an adjustment. So I will always use a belt for just kind of a mock-up, and then I will always add some adjustment, so that's right in the middle of the range. But yeah, there's not a good way to do it because it's not going to perfectly stretch the way you want it to. So yeah, you just got to kind of mock it up. At least that's what I do.
Aaron says, flames get you a pit near the door.
Fair enough.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Emma says, ever thought about using a drone fly thingy as a bot or mini bot, which Poison Arrow did.
Yeah, I personally, I would never use a drone. I think it's a distraction. Mm-hmm. Prove me wrong. I can't see a way where that would ever do anything. Flames from above, the heat's just going to rise into the drone. No.
Yeah. No. Jacob asks, what are your thoughts on UHMW and HDPE versus other metal materials specifically for armor? So plastic versus metal armor.
Yeah, that's a good question from Jacob, HDPE, UHMW. Both of those are great materials. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? An ablative armor or a shock absorbing armor is really good. I don't think UHMW is a viable armor for heavyweights. Watch this season, last season, and see how Shatter's armor really does. I don't think at the heavyweight level it is viable. The other thing about UHMW is that at a certain point it can accept a hit and it absorbs, but you need to affix it somehow. And UHMW really doesn't like being affixed well. All the issues I've ever had with UHMW, especially with crippling depression, is that even if you put a screw through it, it's squishy enough to where it can pull out of that bolt hole. You can't really use threads or inserts into it well or reliably. So I think it's really good at the lower weight classes. Once you start getting up in weight classes, you got to figure out how to hold it in place because that's going to be your problem. The material's fine, but holding it's problematic.
Jonathan Schultz just said, UHMW only Copperhead could be a foot thick though.
Chomp boy! That would be amazing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I would love to see a floppy, all UHMW Copperhead.
And they go against huge.
We turn that drum on and we hit one thing and it's just... It's like jello jigglers.
The whole arena would just be like plastic shavings.
Yes.
All right. People are talking about getting custom belts made versus making your own, but other people are saying there's a ton of options. What are your thoughts on custom belts?
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to make maybe a podcast or a video series about designing. I always outline my design goals first, figure out what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish. Then I kind of do like a rough mock-up, a rough idea of what I'm doing, and then the next step is to go out to McMaster and all the other places and see if the parts exist for that. So the very first thing I do is SDPSI for pulleys and stuff like that. VXB is for bearings, and then McMaster cars for like hardware. The last thing you want to do is have your whole design reliant on this shoulder bolt that's super, super crazy specific, and then you find out it's not made in that size. So do a kind of proof of concept, do your little things, and then look for the stuff out there. If you're going to be doing a belt that's this long and there's just nothing out there, maybe tweak the design a little bit. So I always make sure that stuff is off the shelf available first. That being said, go to McMaster. You can get custom belts through them. You can usually find a belt in just about any profile that you want. There's also 3D printing. When I use belts, I use the O-ring belts, which those are amazing. You can cut them and then just super glue them together, and they will break not on that joint if you do it right. So yeah, design around what's out there.
Ben asks if you ever play with Waiachi's hammer or if it's just for display. I don't know how you play with it, like croquet.
We haven't really done anything with it. Maybe we'll like take it to the beach and have like shots of like drinking a glass of wine. Yeah, it's just up on the wall in my office. I'm like at my computer every day, all day, because I now work from home, and it's right up there. So I don't know. It's just kind of a statement piece to look at, but yeah, I don't really play with it much. I guess we could get a croquet set for outside.
I can barely hold that thing.
Coop
asks if a new team were going to try and get in Battlebots 2021, which unique design would you suggest submitting? Because it seems like there's so many vertical spinners.
That's a good question, and Luke's here. Hi, Luke! Luke! I would say this. I'm just beating this home. What are you trying to accomplish? If you're going to get on Battlebots, what are you trying to do? Have a story, have a theme. If you're just picking a design because you think it's going to get on Battlebots, you're doing it wrong. What speaks to you? We've got Aaron in here, right? Aaron Hill made Tantrum. Why? Look at Tantrum. It is using magnetic encoders. It's doing the punching thing. It's it's doing all these crazy new technologies. That's why Tantrum's interesting, because it's using different things. Look at Luke in here. Luke is always doing different things with his ring spinner that he's got, kitten mittens. Pick a design that speaks to you. If you pick a design, you need to figure out a reason why that design is important to you. I picked Crippling Depression because I wanted a bot that was just safe. I didn't want to have to work on anything. I wanted a bot that was extremely reliable and underrated. I wanted people to look at it and think it was just a joke because it was this box. Pick a design that speaks to you, and then go from there, because you're gonna have a really hard time getting on Battlebots if you can't explain why you're passionate about this thing that you made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tyler Cook and someone else were asking the weight of Copperhead's drum, which I said was about 60 pounds, but I don't know how fast it spins. What's the speed on it?
Yeah, so Copperhead's drum is 50 pounds, but
60 with the bearings?
Spinning mass is 60 pounds.
Okay.
Yep. So 50 pounds is the drum, and then 60 pounds is about the spinning mass. I want to say that tip speed is like 180 miles an hour, 160, 180 miles an hour, somewhere around there. We're definitely sub 200. Once you start hitting into the 200 mile per hour range, you start getting a lot of air resistance, and that chopping sound that you will hear very soon from Copperhead. That sound is the air being chopped, and you hit kind of a wall, and it takes a lot more power to break past that. So a 250 mile per hour drum, you're wasting a lot of energy in that cutting. So yeah, I think we're around 150 thereabouts.
So what's the RPM? Just
I honestly don't know what the RPM is. Oh. I think we're probably 8,000. I think we're sub 10,000 for sure. I could be completely wrong.
I don't know. Maybe Luke knows. Luke.
Luke might know. I honestly don't know that.
Emma asks, would you think an upscaled version of Lolo Man would be effective in Battlebots? I would love to see that.
You know, when you're in bed laying awake at night, you're just thinking about all the stuff you shouldn't be doing because you're trying to sleep. That is one of my like 5 things that I think about is how could Lolo Man be a heavyweight? And right now, my thought is the P60 gearboxes from Banebots and do like 12 of those per side. Like, I've done the math and I think I could get it to, I think 3 inches tall is about the lowest I could feasibly do because batteries become an issue. Think about ESCs, you know, like everything has to be flat packed. But yeah, I think Lolo Man with like a biohazard style 4-bar linkage as a lifter. I've thought about this. Yeah, I think Lolo Man could be interestingly effective. 10 speed is 400 miles an hour. Nice, Luke, nice.
Ty said, were there any robots from UK Robot Wars that you would like to see compete in Battlebots if it were contractually okay to do so?
The house robots?
Oh, Matilda!
I'm not a big fan of Robot Wars.
Aww.
I'm not. I honestly can't think of any. I mean, Terahertz is basically Beta.
Well, we like Monsoon.
Yeah. I mean, I like Monsoon. All the bots from Robot Wars that are in, because, you know, Carbide,
Yeah.
Beta, Monsoon, they're all already in Battlebots. You know, the cheese wedge flippers, I really want to see I want to see a cheese wedge flipper because I want to prove that I just don't think they're going to be very effective.
Yeah, I want to see Hydra and Apollo and see what happens.
Yeah, I want to see Hydra and Apollo, and then I want to watch the Robot Wars where they're like, the most powerful flipper in existence! Yeah, I want to see that after Hydra just like embeds it into the ceiling. But yeah, not a big fan of Robot Wars. So, Aaron's saying
for lowest man Battlebots.
I can do better than
Aaron says, please don't. Sincerely, every overhead spinner.
3 inches. That's 3 inches. Come on. A heavyweight that's 3 inches? Come on, man. That would be bonkers. Nothing would be able to hit that.
That would be amazing.
Oh yeah, the screws would be terrible.
Yeah.
Just go right under them.
Yeah, you get stuck in the screws, you probably lose something with the Killsaw.
2.5. I'd have to look. I don't gearboxes. I think the machining would be the big thing, and honestly, one of the reasons why I got the CNC router is to do those large billets. Definitely not Emma. Tombstone actually can hit a 1/4 inch off the ground, so no, Tombstone would hit it. If you did have some kind of wedge, like my traditional wedge on Lolo Man, it would just kind of ride up, but any hit on the side, and I think the chassis would just implode on itself.
Giovanni asked, what are your thoughts on using Kevlar to increase resistance to puncture over the armor? Have you ever used it?
I haven't. I know nothing about Kevlar. I mean, I know what it is, but I've never used Kevlar in anything. I don't really... I've seen some people use it, but yeah, I haven't really messed with it much, so I can't answer.
Would it like unravel and risk gumming up gearboxes and stuff? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about Kevlar. I know Aaron does. Aaron's going to talk about Kevlar.
Let's see.
I'm just a humble backcountry psych major.
BLDJLN asks, any new robot conceptions that speak to you?
Robot conceptions?
Maybe concepts?
Concepts? I don't know. Do you want to talk about what you're doing, Aaron? I'm really into that. When I explain combat robots to someone that's just getting into it, it's generally the concept of generating energy, storing energy, and transferring energy. That right there in those 3 steps is what the goal of every combat robot should be. You need to generate it somehow, you need to store it, and then you need to transfer it into the other person. A spinning weapon is just the most effective way of doing that. You take a spinning mass, you put energy into it from the battery, into the motor, through the pulley, and then into that spinning mass. By it spinning, it's stored, and then when you bang that into someone else, it gets released and transferred. There's a lot of more creative ways of doing this, i.e. compressing air, transferring that air into a cylinder and that pressing up. There's a lot of ways to do that energy transfer that aren't just a spinning mass. So yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that lately and trying to think of clever ideas, but most of it's been done and most of it isn't terribly effective. So one of these days.
All right. Alon from Axolotl. Hi. Seeing the Copperhead wheels up close has opened up a lot of ideas for us. One thing we looked at was Brazil wheels. What do you think of them?
Oh yeah, the Brazil wheels. Those are the guys that do the vulcanized rubber wheels. I think they're superior to our wheels in every way. I think if you can do the vulcanized rubber wheels, I think that's probably one of the best wheels you can get out there right now. Our wheels are special because they're just so huge. They're just big wheels. They're thick. I mean, you know, you saw last year that we took a direct hit with Sow and the bot just kind of like shifted 6 inches over and kept driving. Like, they're just hard to do much damage to. So that being said, the traction, the durability, and just the overall quality of the Brazil wheels is better. Vulcanized rubber is just going to win.
I think we're
caught up.
We're caught up, and we're coming up on 90 minutes.
Okay. Hey, we got some people in here. That's cool. The average watch time is 8 minutes. You know how many playbacks we got right now?
What?
420. Exactly 420. Oh, we just had 420 playbacks.
Yay, Colorado.
Yay!
Yeah.
I'm looking at all my things here. Stats.
Looking at your stats.
I guess this would be another good time to mention that $ down there. You gotta smash that comment, smash the like button, get the bell.
Put your bell on.
The bell, get that bell on. In the chat, if anyone does want to contribute to my channel to help the furthering of me making robots and stuff, not really, there is the little $ down there. If you click that money, I will buy some tool and show it to you at some point probably. So anyway,
okay. We have a couple more questions coming in. I don't know if you want to answer them. Yeah. So Tyler asks, do you think a more precision-made robot with a drill weapon like Rusty's would do good?
That's a great question. So Tyler, a precision. I'm wanting to go over to the drill press and demonstrate how this exists. If I were to take the top plate of Copperhead, just as an example, and put it on the drill press, actually let me take this back. Let me take a handheld drill and just try drilling into the top plate of Copperhead. If it's not stationary, you're never going to get a bite on it. And that's the biggest issue is you need to hold a robot up in the air, clamp it, and then have a perfect force going directly into the material for a drill to work. And that is why drill robots just never really function right. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to drill into like a hardened material or a steel. You're going to want a pilot hole, and then you're going to want to follow the pilot hole, and you need consistent downward pressure perpendicular to the face. If you're not perfectly perpendicular, it's just going to skitter across. You need to be straight down and have even pressure. I just don't think the drill's ever going to work unless you have some mechanism to line it up and then hold the bot in place, like maybe some magnetic collar that clamps on it, like, you know, the magnetic.
Yeah, that's exactly what Bloodsport's saying. Mag drills are pretty legit.
Yeah, if you do a mag drill, you could get into that, but the complexity of that getting into a spot, like, I'm trying to think of, Bloodsport, you guys, what are you going to drill into? You could stop your weapon against the wall and then maybe find that little gap. I think some people it's going to work well, and other people it's not. I can tell you that with my drill press here that's 350 pounds, it would be a really, really bad time trying to get through the 1/4 inch or actually 1/2 inch thick AR 500 top plates. I might not be able to get through it effectively with even the 350 pound drill press. So it's tough.
Rusty's weapon is an air chisel, right?
Yeah, it's an air chisel.
Yeah. Let's see. Seeing the fight against Mad Catter and Fusion, what do you think of both machines? I like Mad Catter.
I like Mad Catter. Mad Catter, you know, if anyone doesn't know, Mad Catter, Warhawk, and Claw Viper are all basically the same bot. They're all, you know, kind of built off the same chassis. Mad Catter was really, really solid in that one fight that we saw. Yeah, Mad Catter's pretty cool. Fusion's trying. Okay, let me set the stage. Fusion is one of those bots.
Big deal. No,
Big deal. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because Claw Viper is Stevens or Kevin's.
Yeah.
The thing about Fusion is that most people see brushless motors and they're like, okay, I got this 20-pound motor, or I have this 2-pound motor. I got 18 pounds of free weight, and they just dump everything into it. The problem is you got to still kind of think, you got to step back a little bit and realize that that motor is just running at the, you know, peak of its power, and your electronics are, everything else is drawing so much power and so much current. You got to be careful with that. You can't just run everything at the absolute max of the spec. You got to maybe dial it back a little bit. And Fusion tried to dump way too much current into that, and you know, they had battery fires before they left for, or they had ESC fires before they left for Battlebots. So they're just trying to push it a little bit too far, and 2 weapons is bonkers.
From Axolotl asks, how much outsourcing did we do on Copperhead?
Ooh, how much outsourcing did we do? I hand chiseled the entire robot from scratch. We outsourced pretty much everything. The frame was waterjet by Rocky Mountain Waterjet and Laser here in Colorado. That was all out of a single massive sheet of 1 inch. Send Cut Send did all the top plates. Those are cut. The drum was outsourced. We did some of the welding and fabrication. I think that's about it.
Avid did a lot of the aluminum parts this year.
Yeah, Avid CNC machined all the aluminum parts. So actually we outsourced quite a bit. The thing that you gotta understand is companies are very rarely gonna hand you a check. You're not gonna get a check for sponsorship. Even with my sponsorships, I don't think I've ever gotten cash. I think Tormach is the only people that ever gave me cash.
Oh, but, yeah, from your like actual video sponsorships.
Yeah.
Well, E-Gage did cash because.
Yeah. But generally, you're not going to get cash. So what you want to get is in kind, which is either parts or machining. So if you can find a waterjet company, if you can find a machine shop, if you can find people that have the ability to make stuff, that's where your sponsorships are going to get better. Because someone's much more willing to do $5,000 worth of labor than they are giving you a check for $5,000. So almost everything was outsourced because, you know, I can't cut 1 inch AR 400. You know, you just can't cut that.
You did have a bespoke, custom hand painted.
Yeah, the hand painting was insourced. That was all Kim. We did all the painting, we did all the assembly and the finish work, and
a lot of welding.
Yeah, a lot of welding.
A lot of grinding.
Yeah, a lot of grinding. Copperhead has an absurd amount of grinding. We got another question about the drum. The drum was made in 4 pieces, so it was a rectangular block. Top was machined, flipped. Bottom was machined, and then each end was machined. I think technically speaking, the ends were probably done first, and then the top and bottom were done. But it was actually done on just a simple 3-axis machine with 4 setups.
FatX asks if brushed motors will ever be completely obsolete, or are they already?
Brushed motors will never be obsolete because there's always going to be someone out there that's going to be like, brushed motors are the way to go. There's always going to be some guy that thinks that brushed motors are the way to go. And I think in 5 years, I think you're not going to see a brushed motor in most bots. I think it's going to be rare to see a relic out there. Right now, the biggest problem is not the motor, it's the controllers. I think having the controller or the ESC do what you want to do with the motor is the problem right now. But I think you'll see from this season that's largely a solved problem. I think what Tantrum did with Drive, what we and a couple other teams did with the weapon, I think brushed is a solved problem at this, or brushless is a solved problem at this point. So I just don't know if there's going to be a reason to have this big, heavy, clunky motor anymore.
Alon says, it's for those of us who have zero time.
I get
it
that.
It takes a lot of tweaking, or it did for us.
It's eventually going to get to the point to where it's plug and play. Like, I mean, if you go to Castle Creations, I don't know if Luke is still in here, but if you go to Castle Creations and get their ESC and their motor, it's going to work pretty much regardless. Mm-hmm. There are some combinations that will be easy, and mark my words, we're going to start seeing brushless motors that have built-in ESCs where you just feed them power and signal. We're very, very close to that happening, and you might just select between a couple different parameters and you're going to be off to the races. Give it 5 years, it's going to be a drop-in solution.
Mm-hmm. Emma asks, is there a particular design you really want to try out?
Yeah. I want to try... God, what have I talked about? I've talked about everything. Man.
I don't know.
I like flippers, but I don't think I'm ever going to build a flipper.
Melty brain? You talked about that.
Yeah, I want to try a melty brain, but I'm just kind of not there. I just said that, Luke. I said that Castle always works. Yeah, you're right. You just use those. I think a melty brain, I like flippers, I like control bots, but it's just not my style. I'm a very mechanical type person, and I don't know. I like the concept of a clamper and a lifter and a grabber and a flipper, but I'll probably never build one. I'm going to probably stick to weapons, but I think a melty brain or a shell spinner is one that I would really, really like to try. I think it fits my style well.
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind you are on a bit of a delay if people are responding to things after you just said it.
Oh. Sorry, I'm on a delay.
Ty Daly asks, if high KE spinners were banned for some reason, what active weapon type do you think would become the most dominant?
If high kinetic energy was banned, I'm going to assume that there's going to be some kind of pit or other way to win. So I think control bots are going to be the way to go. If you have a limited amount of kinetic energy, all you have to do is build a bot that can withstand whatever kinetic energy is available. And so I think that's going to be the thing. I think if kinetic energy is limited to 5, you're going to have a bot that has enough armor to withstand 6. And I think kinetic energy spinners are going to be largely out of fashion because of that. So then I think it's going to come down to a control game with flippers, grabbers, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some guy from Ohio just submitted that he's making a 3D printed 300-gram Battlebot. Mm-hmm. How much is 300 grams?
Less than an ant weight. Ant weight's 450.
Oh, okay. What printing material do you think would be best?
What printing material is best for a 300 gram, which is a weird weight class? I like nylon. I know a bunch of people are going to go against me on this. I'm a big fan of Nylon X, which is Matter Hacker's nylon carbon fiber stuff. I really like it. It prints clean, it prints consistently, and it's extremely lightweight but very strong. But it is kind of a consumable. It definitely gets damaged and you have to replace it, but it's very rigid and strong, which I like. A lot of people are doing, I think it's Talima 910 is a very popular nylon alloy. So probably any of the nylon alloys would work for me. Nylon fiberglass, nylon carbon fiber, straight nylon, 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 nylon. Spitting hot fire.
Alon says, what do you think of a wider robot, especially playing against robots like Copperhead? And I said, how wide? Like, Smee?
Yeah. Smee's a weird bot.
No, that was me. Alon says about 4 feet.
About 4 feet? Yeah. Oh, for me making a 4-footer.
No, a robot against Copperhead.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, a bot that's 4 feet, we still have how wide's that drum? 16 inches? I don't know, something like that. We still have a drum that's this wide. We're going to come into contact with some aspect of it. Because our forks ride on the ground. Like if you watch really closely, you can actually see us scraping up paint or sometimes even scraping up the metal when we drive on the floor. There's a lot of weight. There's 60 pounds, more than that, of weight right on those forks. It's really hard to pop our forks up off the ground. So I don't know. I mean, you have a 4-foot long bar, we're hitting a 1-foot section of it. How strong is that 1-foot section? Not as much as that drum. So yeah, I don't think it would be very effective versus Copperhead. But, you know, Copperhead isn't also a drive heavy robot either.
That is true.
Yeah.
How do other carbon fiber nylons compare with nylon X? Akshay?
Actually?
Yeah.
I don't really know how all the different carbon fibers perform. I'm very much a if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of guy, and I really haven't had, I've never lost a fight because a different version of Nylon X would have won it, if that makes sense. Anytime I've had Nylon X fail, it has been in a way that it doesn't matter to the fight. It's maybe just cosmetic. I think Anxiety Attack is the only time when it just fundamentally failed, but I don't think any alloy would have saved that. So I use Nylon X because it's readily available. I get it through Matter Hackers, through my affiliate link thing. It's always worked well for me, and I've never lost a fight because of it. So I haven't had any need to switch. I am looking at different alternatives, but you know, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What are you trying to accomplish? What is Nylon X not doing for you? It works fine for me.
Alloy, the Lithomax, asks which weight class is better for experimental designs?
Ooh, I think any of the insect classes are really good for experimental designs, but there's a few designs that just require weight. Like if you're going to be running 2 motors, like 2 weapon motors, you're just not going to do that effectively in an insect class because, or a ant weight class, because just the shaft and the metal and the screws and the fasteners just add up. So if you're trying to do like a drive bot that's really heavy on the drive, you might not find motors and gearboxes that work in an ant weight. So I think a Beetle is kind of the best experimentation. It's never going to be an expensive bot, but you have just enough weight to do the things that you need to do. And then if you can't do it in the Beetle, I think the 12 and the 30, the 12 and the 30 are a great weight class for testing kind of bigger kinetic energy designs. Because you just might not get the effectiveness out of it at the insect class. It's too puny.
Daniel asks...
I'm going to do doing 15 minutes more. I think at 2 we're going to leave, so...
Apparently the sound is distorted.
Maybe I was getting too into it.
Daniel asks, is the energy efficiency of the components a point to consider, or do you just use the one that has the greatest amount of power and what fits in the design?
That's a good point. Yeah, Daniel's asking about energy efficiency. It's something I've never really looked into much, and my designs tend to not be terribly energy efficient. My bots are kind of like Mario, right? Mario's kind of right in the dead middle. I know, you know, like Isaac is always talking about how like, oh, I used like 50 milliamp hours in my 10-minute fight. Like, cool. Mine are not super energy efficient, but they're also not like crazy wasteful either. It's something you have to keep in mind. For instance, on, I think, Anxiety Attack, when that weapon was running at full speed, I was drawing like 35 amps continuous. That is more than most people will do when they're spinning up their weapon. So you just, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your design goals? And what are you trying to do? I think that plays into it. For instance, Long Man has a really inefficient drive because of the magnets. It actually sucks down a ton of power on that drive, and I was actually running out of battery power in some fights just because of the amount of force that it would take to drive it. Is that bad? No, that's the design concept of it. There is no big weapon, so that's what it is. Everything is just a little bit different. Crippling Depression is actually very efficient with the weapon, but that is by design, you know, so just try and figure out what you're trying to do. I think a very inefficient weapon is fine as long as it fits into the rest of your goals.
Dan asks if you think fights are won in the design phase, material choice, or by driving skill in the arena.
Ooh, I don't think fights are won in any of that. None of that. Fights are won in, I don't want to say the pits because that sounds kind of dorky, but fights are won in the design phase and how well you follow through with it in the pits. And maybe that's kind of a bad answer, but
I don't know, but driving's a thing too, because
my driving isn't very good, but the bot is designed around that. I think maybe it's the concept. I think the bot wins in the concept. Case in point, Lolo Man won ARC pretty easily the first time out. Like, I didn't even really get much damage on it. I only charged the batteries, didn't replace anything. Lolo Man. And Lolo Man did that because it was the right venue, it had a really good floor, and it was prepped well for that fight and that competition. It did very poorly in Colorado because the floor is terrible. It wasn't designed for a bad floor, and I should have made bigger wheels, but I didn't prep for it. So I think a lot of it is your design concept. I mean, if you want to make a 500-pound walker that has a flamethrower, blah, blah, don't be surprised when the flamethrower does nothing and you can never get close to someone. You know, I mean, you got to kind of understand what you're trying to accomplish.
I think we're running out of questions here, so maybe we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Who had the best pit setup in Battlebots?
Oh, wow,
Oh yeah. They had tents.
The pits were largely not as interesting this year because there was no audience and it was just kind of for us and we're all spaced out. So the pits weren't interesting. We didn't do a couch or anything because it's just pointless. But Waiachi had like this huge expanse. They had like 3 or 4 pits worth, and they had like a tent in there. They had like a little indoor sitting area. Waiachi tents were pretty cool. Yeah, it had hammock. Oh, it didn't have. Okay, you guys had hammocks.
Hypershock had a lot of on-brand pit
Yeah.
with their neon sign.
Neon sign. I will say this: like their sign was cool. You guys had hammocks, but if I was gonna steal someone's pit, it would have been Waiachi's because they had the tent, they had the TV inside the tent, and they had the HDMI recorder where they were recording all the fights. Theoretically, recording all the fights. In theory, they could have.
Moving on, Tyler said, how do you decide the thickness of materials when using areas around the robot? Is there any stress analysis?
I don't do any stress analysis. I do everything by percentages. I make sure that I only have a certain percentage of weight into armor. Alton Brown always talks about kitchen utensils and how he doesn't like any single-purpose kitchen utensils. I'm kind of the same way. I don't want to have just like one thing that is only armor plate. It's got to be like a structure too. So I try and think of how I spend my weight. You're not going to spend your money, if your weight is your money, on one thing. You're going to try and make it do multiple things at once. So make it as thick as it can possibly be. And if it's really thick, maybe it can end up being structure. Maybe it can be support for a wheel, other things. It's really hard to answer because every bot's very different. I don't know how much weight you have. And if you don't have the weight for the armor that you want, make it like half an inch smaller. That little bit of size goes a long way because it's actually the square or sometimes the cube of that. If you make something a little bit smaller this way, you'd be amazed at how much weight you can save just by making something a little bit more condensed.
I'm going to go ahead and say Tantrum had the best pit now that I know they had AC.
Oh, they had AC? Why weren't we hanging out with you guys more? Jerks.
Because of COVID, we couldn't hang out with anyone.
Yeah.
What's your opinion of Quantum and its generative design techniques?
I like Quantum. I really liked Quantum. I think, like I said very early on in this live stream, I think they strayed a little bit too far from the design goals, mainly the wheels. They were really banking on the fact that everyone would hit them just from that front. Their front wedge was fantastic, But as soon as you get around to the side of them, they had these little itty bitty wheels in the back that were somewhat exposed, and I think that was part of their problem. Fantastic bot. I think the design of having everything be as strong as possible, as light as possible, I think all that was brilliant. I just think it needed another season to just kind of iron out that stuff. When it was holding another bot and driving around, it was putting a huge strain on those little wheels. I think a couple little tweaks and it would be awesome.
What are some nightmare matchups you dread seeing for Copperhead?
Nightmare matchups. I don't know if we have any really nightmare matchups. Copperhead it's basically a weapon. If you're hitting it, you're hitting effectively a weapon. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that have 1-inch Hardox as a weapon. That's our frame. So we definitely heard a couple times like, don't hit the frame. No one wants to hit our frame directly because it's really hard to hit and really bad. I don't know. I think horizontals and shell spinners.
I think really good control bots would get us. Because our drive sucks and we have the gyro.
Yeah, I think control bots, I would not have liked to fight Duck. Duck would have sucked.
Duck or obviously Bite Force.
Yeah, Duck, well, Bite Force. Yeah, that's just a given.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like Duck, any control bot or anyone that can really drive Whiplash.
Whiplash would be tough.
Sawblaze.
Oh, Sawblaze.
Yeah, screw Sawblaze.
He's too good.
No one wants to fight Sawblaze. Jameson's way too aggressive, way too quick. And that bot is just massive. So yeah, we would have just got lost. So I'm going to wrap it up if anyone has any last minute really interesting questions. Yeah, Bite Force is a great control bot, really. It's slow. That's the thing that most people don't realize is Bite Force is very slow. And so...
But strategic.
Yeah.
He's strategic.
He pushes you into the corner. So he makes sure that you're in front of him and he gets you into the corner and you just don't have any place to move and he just makes sure he points towards you. And yeah, Copperhead versus... we have 2 Copperheads over here. What do you think? We can go head to head in the parking lot?
Copperhead versus Copperhead?
Copperhead versus Copperhead?
I call the non-wonky Copperhead. Yeah, I think we're about wrapped up.
Yeah, I think we're good. Smash that bell!
You sound so old.
Not old. So yeah, I think that about does it for this video. I'm going to be back next week with even more videos, and in a couple weeks, I think, I don't know exactly when it's going to air, but keep watching Discovery Channel. Copperhead's going to make an appearance here soon, so check out for that. And then the following Sunday, I will be doing a recap video. So yeah, thanks for coming. As always, check out my Facebook page for the updates to the channel, and thanks for watching.